People don't need to be saved or rescued. They need knowledge of their own power and how to access it. This is where science and spirituality meet.
Join us as we deep dive into topics and share tools to empower yourself along your soul's journey. Hey everyone, this is Lisa and Wendy with Deep Dive Soul Talk, and we're talking about an episode that I am super excited about. It's called Declutter Your Space and Declutter Your Mind. There's so much here, and we're going to give you a snapshot, just the tip of the iceberg, if you will. And then as you listen to other episodes, we're going to talk about feng shui and how all of this ties in together. Also, if you refer to some of the past episodes, you'll see how things start to thread together and make sense specifically to this topic and then moving forward. So let's talk, Wendy.
Yeah, I'm so excited we're doing a video.
Yeah, this is big for us, guys. This is our first time, and we want to share with you who we are and what we're about.
Yeah. And I think the whole declutter your space and declutter your mind is such an important topic. We have so much going on in our minds and in our spaces, and they relate to one another.
So true. And we don't have to wait for that quote unquote spring cleaning, because that tie-in, our thoughts, our minds, our clutter, it's all just sitting there. And in essence, it can weigh us down. And it does. You often hear that from different generations, things we tell ourselves, right, Wendy?
Clutter is the biggest chi blocker.
And what
really is. Chi is our energy.
Right.
So clutter totally affects and blocks that, whether it be in our environments or in our minds. Right. I think it's really important to take a look at what is going on in our minds, like to take a note of what our mental real estate is. What thoughts are we thinking? What is in our mind? What are our beliefs? What has been programmed that we need to deprogram? What are we conditioned with? What's holding us back?
Right. And it's like you're saying, and I say it in a different way. It's those ruminating thoughts, the things we tell ourselves, the things we share with each other at lunch, at work, when we're driving in the car, we're like Zoom thinking about these things. I remember somewhere I read many years ago, it's like people have this cycle of thoughts that keep running around in their head every day of their life. And our podcast is all about paradigm shift. Where can we just stop, pivot, see it a new way, do it a new way? It's just our suggestions.
Yeah, we have to be aware of that, right? Everything starts with awareness. So once we're aware of, wow, I keep doing this thing, that is the first step to undoing that thing. And then what are we going to do with it? What things are we surrounding ourselves with, listening to, watching? All of these things play such an important role in that mental real estate factor.
And I think that awareness, the thing that could rush in before you even have a chance is shame and judgment, right? It's like, well, I don't even know what to do because, I've done this and this is the way it is. And I'm overwhelmed, or, you don't understand, and this is the self-talk, right?
Right. And I think a lot of it comes from childhood too. We were maybe told we couldn't do certain things, or maybe certain relationships that we've been in have just kind of lowered our personal energy. Right. To where we have a lot of self-doubt, a lot of self-limiting beliefs. So how do we declutter these real estate thoughts that are in our mind?
Right. So true. It's a hard one when you sit and get overwhelmed and just stuck in it. It weighs you down mentally, physically, and then our environment is a reflection of that. Like, take a look at your car. Is your car neat and orderly? Does it just look like a a garbage can, you know what I mean? Just little things like that. Or are there a collection of things on the counter that you're like, I keep walking by those, I'll take care of that later, you know?
Yeah, our environments are a direct reflection of what's going on inside of us. So, take, for example, if you are struggling financially, it will show up in your environments in your wealth area. That area might be cluttered or off balance with elements. Um, there are there is a direct relationship with our environments and us. So, in feng shui, when I'm doing a consultation, that is a key indicator to me what's going on with somebody in their mental space
Mhm.
as to what is showing up in their space. Ooh, see these weird rainbows on my face?
I love them. I think they're beautiful. I was
I'm
just
trying to move
admiring
around.
them. I'm like, I wish I had rainbows on my face right now. No, I love
Yeah,
it.
I have a
Um,
crystal in my window, so it's got a
Beautiful.
majestic vibe to it, right?
Yeah, no, no, let it be, let it be. What you just said in your wealth area, I'm really excited about when we start talking about feng shui with everyone. Um, and the bagua and how it all overlays, it's going to make sense. Wendy will really break it down because it's people are like, I have a wealth area. You know what I mean? People don't
Yeah, and
know.
it's not just about being clean and being organized but understanding that clutter blocks chi, and that's a direct reflection of us, helps to understand how important it is in our environments. Our homes, they are they are our little safe haven. They are where we spend our time, where we, sleep at night, where we enjoy family meals, where we have people over. They are our little safe havens. So
Right.
we want to make sure that they are supporting us fully as we, do this mind, body, soul evolution. Our environments are so important because they help support that.
Right. Right. So true. And, you know, I read this report. I don't even think I shared this with you. Wendy, I'm always reading. Just the other day, I read this and it said, this is the first time in history that two generations are simultaneously downsizing. So you have the boomers that are like, I got to offload this stuff. I don't want to deal with my parents' stuff when they're gone. I've got to go a little more minimalist on my things. And then these people that are in their 80s and 90s, they're wanting to scale back too. And so I just thought that was fascinating. And then here we're talking about this. So that segues me right into, well, what if somebody does leave things behind? Say somebody passes away suddenly, or they're like, oh, I've been wanting to leave this for you. So you're left with a home and the contents of a home, plus your own things.
Yeah, and that's a tough one because, taking the example of when someone passes away and you're going through everything, it's such an emotional process too.
Yeah.
So not only are we dealing with the clutter of things, we're dealing with the emotional stuff, and certain things can trigger certain things. And I think that's what blocks a lot of people from removing clutter is there's this emotional attachment to things, or
Yeah.
you feel like, gosh, I'm just getting rid of everything. I'm just getting rid of their life, and these
Will
are
I
mental.
regret this? Or, yeah.
Yeah, and what do I do with it? And it just blocks on and piles on and piles on to where now you've been holding on to this stuff for years, and it is just these enormous shackles that just hold you down.
I can use an example of like my mom was left with 4 generations of stuff when everyone passed away, the last person. And we would go and open the garage door and we'd say, hey, today is the day we're going to do some decluttering. Open the door, my mom would burst out crying and shut the door. And
Yeah.
there it sat for another 6 months or a year. It's like you said, it's that emotional stuff, that emotional charge, the past stuff, the wounding.
And some of it you might not even be aware of because it comes with ancestral stuff, karmic stuff, So you may not even really be aware of, hey, why is this so emotional? I've
Yeah.
had a pretty good childhood. Why am I having such a hard time with this?
Yeah.
So it's a process, and to be patient with yourself and call upon help if needed.
Yeah.
Call upon your soul tribe and your support group to help you, even if it's just one box, one little step. As we start to do these things, it builds more of that up. And I think a real good tip to keep in your mind is, when you're giving stuff away or donating things, that creates more positive chi. That saying, one man's junk is another man's treasure.
True.
So
True. Yeah.
instead of having these wonderful pieces or these wonderful dishes or whatever they are sitting in a storage, why not allow them to go into a space where they will be appreciated and honored and valued? So a lot of it, I think, starts with our mindset and how we're approaching this clutter or
Right.
whatever it is, past belongings. And I also want to give the tip of, why do we hold on to so much stuff? What is it that's valuable to us? What has sentimental meaning? Instead of, oh, all of this my grandmother loved and I'm not into it, but I'm going to hold on to it because she was.
Right. You feel almost like an obliged to do that.
Yeah, sometimes we can feel obligated,
Yeah. Yeah.
to where maybe there's somebody that would really honor and value those things, to where, a piece of your grandmother can go with that person and be,
Yeah.
heightened to its full potential.
And anytime I've done that, what you're saying, giving away something that I know my grandmother loved, and I felt good about it at that point, like, hey, I'm not going to regret this. And then you see the joy in another person's eyes for receiving this and they can use it. It's like you get to see a bit of your grandmother in them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it creates more of that.
Right.
The more you do it,
Right. Right. Right.
the more.
Um, there was a few things I wanted to share, just this last piece, and then I want to share about just some tips on how you can do this. I know we've, given you a lot of down about what it is, but we want to also give you some tips. So the last thing I wanted to say is also think about legal papers, your office work, if you work at home, all of that stuff holds energy, right? So if you have, I don't know if you've ever tried this, but a good tip is put a curtain over it, like draw a curtain so you don't have to see all that. Maybe that lives a bookcase and then it lives behind this beautiful curtain that you can open when you need to get to those financial or legal papers, office work, whatever, or place it behind a beautiful cabinet drawer. So that's
Yeah,
another
you don't want to be looking at that and having it clutter you up. It's good to have a designated space for that kind of stuff, because you do have to go through it. You do have to shuffle through all those papers, and they do carry such a negative chi, especially if they're
Yeah.
daunting task items.
Right. And we want you guys to try it. We're not saying, cover it and forget about it. This really does work is leave some files out, whatever the label is, whatever the name is, leave it out where you can see it. It may be something you have to deal with, but you're just like, oh my God, I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. Now cover it with a piece of fabric, a towel, whatever. Walk by it again. It holds energy. You'll see right then and there, you'll see and you'll feel the weight that it holds. So that's what we're talking about. And it takes up space in your mind and in your physical space.
Yeah, it's organizing that chaos.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
like I always tell people when they're doing a major project of organizing or decluttering, sometimes you got to make a complete mess in order to organize it, to put it back together. And a lot of people get overwhelmed with that because everything's laid out, and
Right.
it could be really overwhelming, but you almost have to do that in order to organize that chaos. So don't be afraid of it.
Right. And that makes perfect sense to me. And if it's too much, you're like, do you mean like my whole house? It's like, okay, maybe it's just your clothes, or maybe it's just your kitchen, like start in a section and compartmentalize it, take it in groupings. And like I like to say is, do phase one, do phase two. It may take you 6 phases of this, or that you have to keep doing this decluttering, but each time you're going to thin it out, so to speak, right? So we're saying start small, and a few ways you can do this that has helped me. And this is all out there on the internet. You guys can find this, but this is what works for what I've tried is divide it into groupings, right, Wendy?
Right.
Divide whatever it is. Let's talk about it's the boxes in the garage. Let's do that. Divide it into groupings. I like to do piles. Am I going to give these things away that's going to bring joy to somebody else that I can see, like we were saying, my grandmother through them, they're appreciating that piece just as much as she would have. Donate is another one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you and I know around where we live, there's so many places. We have like Habitat for Humanity for other families that are coming in, or homeless shelters, all of those, women's shelters, those kind of things. And then there's recycle. What is just sitting there that no one can use and it needs to be recycled? Put it in your recycle bin. Same thing, trash. Is it trash? Is it just stuff that you need to give away, donate, recycle, and there's trash in there too? It happens to all of us. It could be a excess of boxes or papers or things that need to be shredded. Oftentimes there are shredding facilities or electronic donation centers that you can do all that with. The other one is sell. If you feel like, oh, this is a piece that I can't do any of that with, but I'd be willing to put that at consignment or put that on eBay, and if you don't know how, ask somebody to help you. Somebody knows and will. People do want to help. The last thing that's helped me, and I think this is a big one, you guys, is if it's a sentimental piece like Wendy was talking about, do I still need that physical piece in my life? If so, put it where it's supposed to go, on your bureau, in your china cabinet. If it's a piece, no, I will never get rid of this, versus, you know what, that was a piece that meant something. It still does, but I'm okay by taking a picture of it and giving it to somebody who will enjoy it, you know.
Right.
So,
Very good tips. And
yeah.
another important thing too is to reward yourself for all of your efforts.
You are so good with that. Yes.
That is so huge, because it could be so overwhelming and so daunting. I think it's important to celebrate your little wins.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that's just sitting outside and just taking 5 minutes, or reading a book, or going for a walk, or whatever it is, whatever motivates you to, when
Right.
you're done doing your tasks for the day, to reward yourself. And
Right.
it's also important to time block onto your calendar. We all have busy lives. How are you going to get this overwhelming project done? You have to time block in reasonable increments. If you're trying to dedicate 8 hours of your day to do this one project, by hour 4 you're going to be so burnt out and unmotivated. I think smaller time blocks are much more productive to prevent burnout, because then when
Right.
we get burnt out, then we're much more hesitant to go back and do it again, because it was
Right.
such a daunting task and took so much of our energy.
I
We're
have to say, as a special, I mean, just full disclosure, you guys, with one of Wendy's talents, skills, and abilities, and part of her profession is she is a professional declutterer, right? And you gave me that tip. I didn't see the forest for the trees, and I thought it had to be done in 4 hours. I had to dig in, get in there, and do this. And Wendy was like, no, 90 minutes. I'm like, what? That's no time. But, and then give yourself those small rewards. But it was a lot of time. It was so invigorating. I had inertia. I could move forward. I didn't feel bogged down and drained and had to go do some power eating afterwards, right? So listen to what she says, you guys. That smaller little time block is essential.
Yeah, because we have so much going on in a day, and our time is so valuable. If we're just exerting it all into a draining activity, it just leads to burnout. And
Yeah.
I've noticed in working with clients, there's about a 2 hour window. And then I could just see the glazed eyes and
Yeah.
so I really, and then it prevents you from being motivated the next time, to where
Right.
if it was, wow, we got a lot done in 2 hours. Most of the time that invigorates people and they want to keep going. And
Right.
maybe you could a little bit, but it's good to end on a good note and then go reward yourself, because then you're going to be much more motivated the next time to go on in and
Right.
tackle that, because it didn't suck the life out of you.
Right. And it's okay. Like she said, let's say that 90-minute block, it's okay to stop there, leave it there. You can come back to it. So that's your phase two, you know?
Yeah, and you got to realize it took years and years and years to accumulate all of this stuff. It's going to take some time to unravel it, and that's okay. I
So true.
think I think that's a big part, is just understanding that that's okay and that it's a process and you're working on it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and give yourself credit for that.
Wow. I love this episode. Thank you for doing this one with me. This was
Yeah, this is a great
full.
one.
I think it can help so many of us, and it's a great reminder always to the things that come into our life too, because clutter's going to come in. It's going to keep coming in. It could be junk mail. It could be things we've collected, or, oh, I just need this one more thing. And then you're like, what? Why did I get this? So
When you have
fun.
systems that work for your everyday life, like if you have a place to put your mail, if you're not one to quickly shuffle through the junk mail,
Right.
it's good to have, say, a basket or something, to collect your stuff in. If you're the
Yeah.
type that comes in the door and throws, all your stuff down, it's good to accommodate a place for that, so that it could support you. Our spaces can support us. If you take
System.
a lot of, say, vitamins and supplements, you don't want them all over your counter.
Right.
Designate a spot for things, and that's how we allow our environments to support us, because the more we clutter them up, the more they're off balance, and then that leads to mental imbalance.
Wow. So true. I like that you.
Very important to understand how these mirror one another.
Mhm. So true. On that note, I mean, I couldn't have said any of that better. So we're going to leave it right there, you guys.
I think it
Thank
was
you,
a great
Wendy.
episode.
It was. It's so important. And yeah, we'll be here next time. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive Soul Talk. See you on the next one.